Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar. We want to talk to you about quite a few exciting topics. AI and the new era of EX, EX meaning employee experience, of course. And I am not talking to you alone today. I'm happy to be here alongside my colleague Sebastian. Hi there, buddy. We're both part of the strategic advisory team here at Staffbase, and are super excited to be talking to you about the trends that we see out there, how AI is changing what we do in the world of employee experience, in the world of internal comms, in the world of intranets, and also we'll bring along a couple of examples from the clients that we are working with. So let's dive into the topics that we're covering today. We're going to be talking about market trends, not only AI, and I specifically said AI aside here because AI is not a trend. AI is kind of everywhere, right? So we're talking about trends and AI, and of course also how they impact the digital workplace, right? So here at Staffbase, you always try to think of the entire digital workplace, not only maybe the app or maybe the internet as an island. So really try to have a holistic view on digital workplace and how all those tools play with each other. And ultimately, like I mentioned, we're also happy to share some real life insights from Staffbase clients and how they're using latest technology. Seb, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. So if you have seen Staffbase webinars before, went to Staffbase events, you know that we are most likely always starting with kind of market trends that we are seeing. And that's also what we are doing in the first couple of minutes, so not too long, but we wanted to talk to you about some trends that we are seeing in the conversations that we are having on events that we are speaking or even just listening to. So Kevin, myself, and our whole strategic advisory team is involved in a lot of different conversations with a lot of different companies all around the globe. We are regularly speaking at conferences. We have our huge partner network where we are regularly discussing what they see as kind of trends. And that's why we brought 5 trends today that will be kind of the frame of everything that we are going to present in terms of what's going on in the business, how are those trends shaping the employee experience market. And without further ado, let's directly dive into the first trend, which is decentralization. So if we are talking about decentralization, we are talking about especially bigger companies that are faced with the need of decentralizing their communications. Because if you want to gain reach, if you really want to reach your employees, it's way easier for people that are close to those kind of group of employees instead of having just a global comms team that are filling their intranet, their employee app, or their email newsletters with content. It's way more authentic if you can create content on a local level, because the local folks know their employees, they know the topics that are relevant for them. And we see this especially going on in bigger companies above 1,000 employees, that decentralization of comms is a key for maximizing reach. So this would be trend number 1. And Kevin, you have brought the second one.
Yeah, the second one is all about social intranets, communities, and them specifically being redefined. And yeah, if you look back and think back what social used to mean, or what social intranet used to be when they came up, maybe 20, 15 years ago, big enterprise social networks that were rolled out to organizations there. It's definitely a lot of change happened since, and not only in terms of how these platforms are being used, but also just the amount of social content that we're all consuming, right? Think of all the social networks that we're all part of, that we're all using, not necessarily in business context, but also even privately, right? All those platforms like TikTok, they just came out in the past couple of years, and all those habits of different contents, different consumption styles, different communication styles are now slowly but steadily coming into the business world. And this is definitely something that companies will have to have an answer for, and which is why we think the way how an internet, for example, has to be social, and the way how communities play a part of corporate communications has to be completely refined, and is a big trend that's probably already a trend for a couple of years and will continue to be one for a couple of years, just because it's a major change that companies will have to adapt to.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about platforms like TikTok, like Facebook, leads me to the third trend, which is kind of different generations meet at employers at the moment. So Kevin, you and I, we are kind of digital natives since the Game Boy, I would say. And we see currently a lot of things happening in organizations because we have completely different generation point of views if we're talking about digitalization. So we have folks that are faced with digitalization as they are older. We have younger folks who are completely digital, daily active on Snapchat and TikTok. So if we talk about employee experience and digital employee experience, we have to make sure that it works for all of those kind of generations with all their experiences, or even if they're not tech savvy, it has to work for everybody. And this is a challenge for a lot of organizations right now, because the world is moving very, very fast, especially if we're talking about AI. You all know how tremendously fast this topic hits all organizations worldwide, and everybody has to adapt to it, and everybody has a kind of different starting point. So this is a trend that is getting tremendously important, especially through AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Trend number 4 might be a surprising one to some of you, but in the conversations that we are having with our clients and prospects globally, we have seen a rapid increase of ServiceNow becoming a topic, of becoming a very valid source and relevant source of information, but also source of integration for platforms like Staffbase, just because ServiceNow has become much more than just an IT service management platform that it started off as a couple of years ago. It really becomes, an IT command center, so to say. I don't know if that's the term that they're using, but I think so. So it really is becoming the new IT darling. So we're not only now facing heavy Microsoft or Google ecosystems, but also ServiceNow becoming a much more integrated part, not only for service management, but also for knowledge management, for workflows, for processes. So very, very crucial, very, very important for many organizations out there. And definitely something that we as a solution provider, as a communication solution provider, also want to be integrated with, want to have an answer for, and an ecosystem that we're generally very eager to be closely collaborating with and interacting with. I think Sepp, we have a couple of examples later of how we integrate with ServiceNow going forward.
Yeah, we definitely have. And talking about ServiceNow becoming the IT darling, it's an IT tool, of course, because it's a technical platform, but it's heavily used also outside of IT nowadays. So a lot of HR processes are in there. A lot of HR knowledge management is going into ServiceNow. We even see clients that are handling their whole facility management via ServiceNow, stuff like that. So the importance of such a service management and knowledge management platform is getting bigger and bigger in a lot of organizations. And what is also a topic for ServiceNow is automation, and this also plays into the 5th and last trend, which is kind of a no-brainer because it's obviously AI. Everybody's talking about AI. We are not getting around this topic, so AI has come to stay. There is only the question about how are we going to use it? How are we going to use it in the terms of employee experience? But if we're talking about AI, we also have to talk about automation of processes. And this is also where ServiceNow plays a big role. But the main question for today is, how are those 5 trends kind of influencing the digital workplace and the employee experience that we are providing with the digital workplace to our employees? And this is the second part that we're going to have a look on. And if we want to kind of summarize those 5 trends, so decentralization, redefinition of social intranets, generation mixture, and new core players in the digital workplace market like ServiceNow, and of course AI, we see some impact there, and we need to ask ourselves how to prepare our digital workplace for that. And I brought 5 points as a simple overview template, because the digital workplace, from my point of view, needs to be ready for at least all generations. It needs to hold a lot of content owners, because if we're talking about decentralization in organizations, it needs to be ready for that. Those decentralized editors need to be able to influence the digital workplace, and it needs to be ready for all employees. The third point is we need to have a rethought community approach in our digital workplace. So we need to make sure that we have the right concept for social aspects. The fourth point would be that we need to have the digital workplace able to integrate the most important systems. Not every system, of course, but the most important systems. And the last point is we need to have a clever way how to utilize AI in the digital workplace, because we kind of have the situation at the moment that a lot of organizations are going knee deep into AI and they try to solve everything with AI. It's kind of the hammer and nail problem. If you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We need to have a clever way how to utilize AI so that it's worth the effort and it also gives some benefits to the people using the AI. And if I'm talking to organizations about their digital workplace, what I often miss is kind of an overview about how is your digital workplace actually looking like today. And for that, I always bring an example of how you could visualize that, so that you have a common basis and a common understanding about how is this digital workplace working, what kind of tools are in it, and how are they working together. And typically we have in the digital workplace, we have this kind of collaboration stack, which is either Microsoft Teams or tools like Slack. We have the whole business ecosystem, which I refer often to as library and process area. So you have SharePoint, you have ServiceNow, you have Workday, all the business processes and the knowledge management. And the last layer, I'm typically calling the communication and access layer. So the central entry point to the digital workplace, where also the single source of trust is located. So communication is one key aspect for employee experience. That's the place that is relevant for everybody, because not everybody will work with every tool in the business ecosystem. Sales folks will work with Salesforce, but somebody who is working in the production will never touch Salesforce at all. So you need to have one layer that gives you access to everything that is behind that. And it helps to kind of create this visualization for your company. And I brought you two real-life examples of two companies that you might know. So Wieland is a production company. You probably know MAN Truck and Bus. And they both created different kind of visualizations of their digital workplace with different kind of information. So you can see Wieland one said, okay, we have a front door where few to many communications is in. You have general job related information. You have integration of group-wide tools, and you have links to deep dives. And those links to deep dives are going then into the library and processes part, so to SharePoint, knowledge management, deep documentation, general workflows, and so on. And you have the collaboration stack based on Microsoft Teams. And you can also see the target group here is very small, because for Wieland, only office workers have access to Microsoft Teams. All the production workers don't need access to Microsoft Teams. For them, it's mainly the front door, which is relevant, partly also the knowledge management area. Same applies for MAN. They even can further and said, okay, what is the data classification in those different kind of layers? So something that is in the let's call it front door area is only in data classification public or internal, and everything that is confidential or strictly confidential goes into SharePoint, where you have with Azure Information Protection, for example, kind of different security layers that you can use, and you also have very smaller target groups. And both are kind of referring to this term of front door. And front door is something that we see as one of the concepts which is very successful in the market right now, if you're talking about intranets. And this is also the concept that we are following as Staffbase. If we're talking to organizations about their intranet approach, we are always talking about the front door intranet concept. And in a nutshell, what that means, and I brought you an example here again from MAN. This is how the MAN intranet looks like on desktop and on mobile. There are 4 points that a front door intranet must fulfill in the future to be really successful. And the first one is the I called it the lighthouse, not the engine room. So in former times, if we talked about intranets and intranet portals, so huge intranets, like on Drive or on SharePoint, they were kind of content monsters. Everything was in there. Nobody had fun working with them. Everybody struggled to find information because they were just really big. The Pronto intranet is completely different. It's a lightweight intranet solution. Again, single source of truth. So you have communication in there, you have the information in there that are relevant for everybody, and it creates this kind of feeling of orientation and trust. So a completely different intranet experience, and it's also working for everybody. So we had this trend of generation gap, and different generations hit organizations. So this is something that Pronto intranet concept makes it easier because it's lightweight, it's easy to use. Nobody needs to learn how to use an intranet. It just works, and it works on every device and for every kind of employee. It doesn't matter if it's somebody who's on the road, works in an office, or works in a production hall, or on the shop floor. It just works on the mobile device, on the desktop, on the device where this employee is working on. Third point, more engagement through decentralization. Also, this is something that we see heavily used by our customers, that they are giving content ownership to larger and larger groups of editors. So it's no longer a tool and an intranet that is just filled by a central comms team. Most of our customers are having a small comms team that is relevant for the overall governance of the intranet. But the whole content creation and content editing and news creation is done by decentralized editors, which are from time to time not even comms people, but local responsibles for the location, local leaders, and so on. So they learn very quickly how to utilize the tool and create good kind of content based on the alignment with the central team. And last but not least, fast to deliver and easy to maintain. So Kevin, you're working in the area of intranets quite some time. You implemented a lot of different intranets. 5 to 10 years back, I would say typically implementation timelines were about 1 year to 1.5 years. Because you had a lot to configure. There was a lot to customize to create an intranet experience with different kind of tools. And this is something that where we see a need for a different approach, because times are moving very, very fast. Organizations are faced with a lot of changes and transformations nowadays. So we just don't have time anymore. And we also don't want to spend 7-digit amount of monies and configuring an intranet solution. We want to have it very quickly available with as less customization as possible, and also easy to maintain. So I still hear from companies that are utilizing, for example, SharePoint or other big intranet portal solutions, that the comms department needs to raise an IT demand if they don't want to show only 3 news posts at the news stage, but 5, and they're waiting half a year to get this implemented. And this is a no-go nowadays. So this is something a comms department should be able to do on their own. Either it's an adjustment of the start page or an adjustment of the navigation. This is no longer an IT task. This is a comms task. They need to be very flexible on changing also those important things. And
just to underline one aspect you mentioned here, on the digital workplace picture, the visualization of a digital workplace. If some of you who are seeing this now, listening to us now, if you don't have that, I would highly encourage you to go out there and try and create such a visualization of how your digital workplace looks like. And it's probably something, if you're a communicator, that you can nicely team up with your IT team, because it'll also be in their interest to create a very clear picture for all your employees, what to use for what. And you'll be surprised how complex it is. And I'm pretty sure, me personally, I probably don't know exactly what tool we use for every single purpose, right? But the closer you can get to clarity here, the better your employees will know what to use the intranet for, what to use Teams for, what to use SharePoint for, where do I go for which information. Luckily, technology is becoming more and more integrated these days, right? That's what we're going to talk about next. But still, creating such a simple overview of your digital workplace will go a long way with lots of your audiences.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. Completely with you. And it also helps in pitching changes to the digital workplace internally, because if you have this visualization and you want to change something, you can directly show what's the impact of this change. And you mentioned integrations, Kevin, and this is something that is coming up basically in every digital workplace discussion. If we're talking about, hey, this is a front door concept, this would be cool for your organization. Mostly the people responsible for the digital workplace are asking, how does your tool actually integrate with yada, yada, yada?
I love those questions.
Yeah.
I always ask back, what's the use case, right? Because sometimes you get very strange integration requirements.
Yeah. And this is a very valid point. And same for me. I always tend to ask way more questions than just answering, hey, we have standard integrations for this and that and that and that tool. It's really important to understand why is an integration necessary, because IT departments and intranet projects and digital workplace projects in the past tended to over-integrate a lot of different tools. There were things like the Outlook inbox integration into the start page of your intranet. It makes no sense to show your last 5 emails on the intranet start page because you can't do anything with that. As soon as you're clicking on that, you're jumping to Outlook. Why do you need an integration to show those kind of emails? Because everybody knows if I need to see my emails, I'm going into my inbox. It probably also doesn't make sense to integrate a Salesforce dashboard for everybody, because not everybody is using Salesforce. And people who are heavily working with Salesforce, they will go into Salesforce. So we really need to understand when and what kind of integrations are necessary. And we talked about the new IT darling ServiceNow, and that's the only integration example I brought as one example to show you how you could think about integration and also useful integrations. And there are 2 different ways that I, from my experience and from my conversations, would say are making sense. One is the extension of ServiceNow with features that ServiceNow is not as good nowadays. So communication is definitely not a strength of ServiceNow. ServiceNow is a really powerful tool for service management, for knowledge management, so for storing and making available a lot of information. But communication, also very targeted and personalized communication, is something that is very hard to achieve with ServiceNow. And this is something where you could think about, especially for ServiceNow power users in IT that are having the whole IT service management and ticket handling and so on in ServiceNow, or HR, having all the HR processes in there, that you extend ServiceNow on that part of communication, that you show communication from a communication tool inside of ServiceNow for those people who are starting their day and ending their day in ServiceNow, would probably make sense to increase the reach of your communication. And this is an example, this is a real life example here, that we can show news inside of ServiceNow, and you wouldn't even recognize that this is not originally coming from ServiceNow. And this is also very important because it just feels like a natural ServiceNow building block. And the second example, if you're talking about a front door intranet, it would make sense in a lot of cases to bring in some ServiceNow features into such a front door intranet. Like, for example, if you're working with a lot of tickets and incident handling, it would make sense for a lot of folks to at least show the latest tickets and the latest statuses of those tickets in the front door intranet. What always makes sense, especially if you're using knowledge management, is kind of a search integration. So if you're in the front door intranet, in the central entry point, and you just don't know where to find an information and you're utilizing the search, it makes sense that the search gives you back, hey, there is a result and this is located in ServiceNow. So you can directly jump off to a third-party tool then makes it easier to navigate through the digital workplace. And last but not least, notifications coming out of ServiceNow are making sense for some folks in organizations to end up in a kind of notification center, in the central notification center of the front door intranet. One example that I had with one of my clients is that they are utilizing ServiceNow for everything that is HR. So from vacation requests and up until every bits and piece that you want to request from HR. But their frontline workers don't have an email address. So they are starting their ServiceNow request, but they don't get any kind of notification if the request is done, if they have a question. They have had to proactively look into ServiceNow, and nobody did this, obviously. And that's why they said, okay, we're having this employee app where they can now start a process that is then triggered in ServiceNow, and ServiceNow is giving back a notification, hey, your vacation request is approved into the employee app notification center. And with that, even without an email address, we were able to show progress on such kind of tickets and processes also to frontline workers that in past times kind of didn't get any kind of proactive notification. So this would be integrations that could make sense. For all those integrations, it's very, very important to understand who is getting a benefit out of those integrations, what's the effort that we have to spend, and does it really make sense to talk about integrations, or is just a link maybe sufficient to other tools? So now I talked a lot about digital workplace, but we had one other claim in the title, which was AI. And this is something, Kevin, you have prepared some cool insights and cool developments.
Yeah, absolutely. What about AI? So some of you might felt a bit trapped so far. You were missing that very crucial part for the webinar. But listen, this is what I said in the beginning. We always try to see this as in a very holistic point of view. There's many different changes happening at the same time, and I'm pretty sure that some of you listening right now already think that the digital workplace concept, the front door concept, is something that they have to get to. Maybe in the future, other companies will say, okay, we have that, check, tell me more, right? So there's a lot of things happening, and companies are on so many different stages in terms of maturing their digital literacy and maturing their digital workplace. And now AI comes on top, right? To make it even more complex, but also so much more exciting, right? Because this is something that will help us to make everything even more personalized, right? And just quickly going back to Sepp, you just talked about that it doesn't make sense to integrate absolutely everything into one platform, right? So I remember a couple of years ago, I'm sure you remember as well, there was a lot of talk about the single pane of glass, right? And some providers tried to really integrate absolutely everything and provide absolutely everything out of one view for employees. But reality is it just doesn't make sense because the ecosystems are too complex. There's way too many platforms out there. It's absolutely impossible to integrate everything. But also realities of every single audience within a company is too complex, right? So there's probably different audiences that would need multiple different panes of glass, right? So you, in a complex organization, you end up having to create tens, if not hundreds of different integration layers because employees work with different tools. They have different tasks. They need different information. So it's all about personalization. And this is where AI can really help to scale this personalization aspect. Kommt das durch, Sepp?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's have a look at what this entails. To start with, if we think about AI and most of the clients that we've been working with in the past 1-2 years, we've mainly been focusing on how AI is changing things for us. And when I say us, I mean communicators, HR professionals. So we maybe thought about using AI for better content creating, using it as a kind of assistant, right? That can help us generate ideas, generate better content. But this is only a little. This is only a little bubble here, the business bubble that might have been starting to adapt AI in a certain way. Whereas, and this is the big elephant in the room here, the big radical change is happening on the end user side. The big radical change is happening on with our end users, with ourselves as we're all changing how we're consuming information, and ultimately also how we will consume information as employees of our companies. This is one statistic. I could show you so many more statistics of how the use of ChatGPT and other AI agents out there is absolutely gone through the roof in the past couple of months. So as you can see here, this is the statistic of the minutes per day that the active users spent in the US with ChatGPT. It's already up to 20 minutes. This is only going back to April. I'm pretty sure if we look at the recent September, October stats, it would be even above 20 minutes per day. And this is a global trend, right? So many more users are using those things for different kinds of use cases every single day. And this is doing a lot to the internet world, right? We're talking about the wider internet, not yet the intranet, internal business world yet. So for another very a very cool example here is Google search, right? What does this to how we consume and search for information? Whenever you go to Google now, you type in a question or a keyword and you get those AI quick answers. And what this does is that people don't click on links anymore. You can see on the right-hand side that statistic that the amount of zero-click search is also rapidly increasing over the past couple of months, just because AIs and agents and chatbots are able to give us one answers instead of us having to click on multiple websites and gathering information from multiple different sources. So this is changing a lot of how we consume information, how we interact with ChatGPT, and how we just simply ask questions. So you could confidently say, this is just another iPhone moment, right? So back in 2007, the iPhone fundamentally changed a lot of things, right? It fundamentally changed how we expected technology to work, right? I remember the first time I had an iPhone or an iPad in my hand. The touch screen experience was just mind-blowing back then, right? And we're going through exactly such a shift of behavior right now with how we expect technology to be intelligent, how we expect technology to know what we're looking for and to just super rapidly deliver results. So if we bring this into the context of our internal communications world, in the context of the digital workplace that we have just been talking about, AI will also over time become a gatekeeper. Because if you think of all your content, your current SharePoint, your current ServiceNow, your current intranet, your current app, going forward, we will have to think of our content to not only create it for humans and our employees, but we will also have to create it for AI. Because your employees will end up using AI search, AI chatbots, AI podcasts to consume content, right? Because this is just a new content consumption behavior that will also make their way into not only platforms like Staffbase, but also platforms like Workday, like Microsoft, like ServiceNow, etc. All of those major players that most companies out there have in a tech stack are working on those smart communication layers. So this is something that you will have to think about, right? And we'll have to think of that AI is a new intermediary between us, the companies, and the knowledge and the information we want to share and our different target groups. So thinking of the intranet, we can absolutely radically rethink what the intranet looks like. And here's just a few examples of how we at Staffbase will use those new technologies to bring this new content consumption behavior to employees via the internet, via the employee app. And this is just recently announced. If you want to learn more about our employee AI functionality, then you'll find great articles and dedicated webinars on our website. But here's just a quick sneak preview on how we're, for example, going to integrate AI into our search, how there's going to be an AI assistant that also supports voice conversations, and also a podcast. So think of a personalized podcast that's generated for every single of your employees. So 5,000, 10,000 personalized employees on a weekly or monthly basis, going out to your employees and updating them on the most important things that they need to be aware of. But we would not be Staffbase if we would only think about the shiny feature functionality here, but we really want to completely rethink, like I said, rethink how an intranet works, and we have to rethink how an intranet works in a modern digital workplace with AI assistance and the influence of AI becoming bigger and bigger. So there's not only those functionalities under the reach layer you can see on the right-hand side here, but there will also be very important data and control layers that we'll be heavily investing in, allowing you to, first of all, bring in employee context and memory from connected data sources, building integrations and MCP layers into very crucial information systems that you have, like your HRIS, like your Microsoft 365 instances, and allowing you to bring all those data in, but very importantly also here in the middle, the control layer, right? We know we're currently finessing this in a lot of open beta testing and closed beta testing of all those features with many of our clients. We know that AI is a black box to some extent, right? And we basically want to try and break up the black box. We want to give our clients control of how to use AI, how they want to leverage AI, which features they want to use at all, but also then going into the tiny little details here of really allowing them to personalize, to customize how those features are using certain information, giving AI chatbots, for example, the company context, the company brand, etc., all that to just make it feel more your own, right? And to make it something that really comes through as a personalized assistant to every single employee, knowing where this employee works, knowing where this employee is located, etc. So really allowing faster and broader AI adoption here. So something that we want to bring as someone who already knows how to go the last mile, right? So for past 10 years at Staffbase, we were able to connect employees with the employee app, and now we want to use that reach to also bring AI adoption to all of our clients. So hopefully that was quite a few exciting things. Sep, you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Exciting times ahead. I really look forward to also this control layer, because if we're talking about trust, and this I mentioned it twice already, single source of trust, front to internet, we need to make sure that everything that we're doing with AI that is targeting our employees needs to be trustable as well. And this is a job for communicators to make sure, by utilizing tools like Employee AI from Staffbase, that we can still be on this level of trust. And I do think the example that you brought with the podcast that we are at Staffbase now using since quite some time. So we have a couple of thousands of those individual podcast episodes already live. The first time I heard this thing, I was so amazed, because it's so personal. It's greeting you with your name. It's knowing some HR data, for example, how long you have been with the company. We have stuff in our employee profile, so hobbies and animals. And I have listed there that I have a dog, and it kind of referred to that at the end. So give your dog some cuddles or something like that. It was just so mind-blowing personal. And that's not rocket science, of course. It's just an AI that summarizes everything that I might have missed over the last week. But having this on this personal level is just amazing. My colleague Steffi said she was getting back from vacation, and the first thing she did was to listen to that podcast episode, and this podcast told her, "Hey, you had birthday last week. Happy belated birthday," which is just fantastic. And I do think this could be a game changer if we think about enriching this also with more data. If the podcast then cannot only refer to this is what you might have missed in terms of communication, but if there are real HR processes coming in, so telling you, hey, you have still 10 open vacation days and you need to book them until the end of this month, for example, then we have additional benefit in there that makes this as one of the crucial aspects of every organization. So this is something I'm really looking forward to. All right, looking at your time, Kevin, we brought some small real-life examples from some organizations. I'm going to show you them really, really quickly. First one of those real-life insights is Aldi Australia. So Aldi is working globally with us. I guess there's only one missing country so far. Every other country is working all around the globe with Staffbase. I brought this example because they have really fantastic numbers, of course. So if you're looking at that, we have this 3-step approach that we're trying to go through with every of our customers. First one is connect, so basically bringing people on the platform. If we're talking about Aldi Australia, a lot of people working on the shop floor. We are mainly talking about an employee app. 98% registration rate is kind of impressive for an employee app that you use on your private devices. So this is the first step that we are going, bringing people on the platform. Second step that we're trying to achieve is bringing people to interact and engage with the platform. So coming regularly to the platform, interacting with it, liking, commenting, filling out forms, utilizing integrations in the platform. And we can see 87% weekly active usage rate from all employees. This is what basically every vendor of employee apps and intranet is doing and measuring. And what we are doing with our customers, we're going one step further and saying, okay, we have a phase that we're calling Inspire, where we really want to reach hearts and minds of people, where we really want to change something in people's minds. So if we're talking about a transformation that is going on in organizations, we want to assist this with strategic communication campaigns so that we can really also measure what is going on in hearts and minds of people. Are people willing to go with this transformation? Are they accepting a change? And for Aldi Australia, this was becoming a very recognized employer in Australia, and you can see employer of choice in 2022, 2023 employer of choice again. So this was something that they tried to support with strategic communication campaigns, and which worked out very, very well. Second,
I just had to think about when you say we want to move hearts and minds. Interestingly, it might sound pathetic to some of you, but think about that podcast example that Seb just gave with our colleague. If you really are so personal with employees and you name them by their name, you tell them happy birthday, you know about something they have put on their profile, this is truly touching your people's hearts, right? So this is really then bringing this vision to life and most importantly, doing it at scale for every single employee in your company.
Yeah. At the beginning, I talked a lot about digital workplace and different kind of systems and integrations into each other and creating a kind of visualization of the digital workplace. I brought you as a second example one of our biggest customers, which is DHL, with roughly 600,000 employees worldwide. And they have a lot inside their front door intranet and their employee app. And for me, this is a very cool example, because if we're talking about digital workplace, we're talking about a lot of different kind of applications, because we as office workers tend to think about in different applications. So I know that I'm working with Microsoft Teams, I'm working with Slack, with Salesforce, with the G Suite. I'm working in 10 or 15 different applications per day. This is the nature of an office worker. And we can think about some integrations there that might make sense. But if we're talking about a shop floor worker or a production worker or a logistic driver at DHL, their digital workplace is on one device. It's one application. If we're talking about private devices, a logistic driver of DHL wouldn't be willing to download 15 apps to spend their working day in. they are probably willing to download one application from DHL, and this application then has to fulfill everything that they need. And DHL is going that path very, very strictly. So you can see they have something like a launchpad and an overview of different kind of applications that are integrated or available from the employee app. And you can see that you can even order some DHL workwear via the employee app. And you don't need to leave the application. You don't need to download a different application to your smartphone. Everything is inside of this app, and you can see that they also have a lot of different other things. So, of course, global news, division news, local news. They have quizzes in there. They have every HR services in there. They even do pre-boarding and onboarding. So even if people have not reached their first working day, they already get access to some content so that they can prepare on what's going to happen at my first day, in my first week, and so on. And DHL was able to tremendously improve their eNPS score by utilizing this very, very strategically with one central application with this front door concept. And last but not least, one example, kind of similar size of an organization, which is ISS, so not the space station, but the facility management service company. They have also a couple of 100,000 employees worldwide. And the interesting thing here is I'm working with them since they started to utilize Staffbase a couple of years back. And their global team for this whole application and for this group-wide employee app and front door intranet is 2 people. So they have 2 people in the global team that are responsible for the main platform. And as I said in the beginning, those 2 are mainly focusing on having this as scalable as possible, to have a governance available so that they can say, hey, here, communication team in the US, here's your platform, here are the rules, what you can do, what you shouldn't do, and please utilize the platform as you like. You can fill in every kind of content, you can do local communication based on your needs. They hardly have any kind of global content available. And for me, it was a very proud moment. We as Staffbase have our Voices conference once a year, and the right image is the German comms team speaking at Voices about how they're utilizing this global platform with everything they need locally. So decentralization is possible even in really huge organizations with really small global teams. It's a very, very successful approach. And ISS is one of the best practice examples that I am aware. And with that, we already talked for quite some time, Kevin. I do think we had a lot of content. And I'm not sure, Kevin, do you have any closing remarks?
No, it's just super exciting to be working with all of our clients and future clients on all those things, right? I think what excites me most is, like I said earlier, companies are at so many different stages, and some of them are ready to adopt AI right now, and some have to do a couple of steps before that. So the work never stops, especially for us, I guess. But no, it's very exciting, especially to be working with so many different companies out there in different industries, to see where they are and then help them basically take the next step. Yeah, and of course, especially AI. Very, very excited about that.
Cool. And thank you all for listening in, for spending some time with us. If there are questions popping up in your mind later on, you will find our email addresses here, also a link to our LinkedIn profile. So feel free to reach out to us directly. We're always happy to chat, to learn from you, from your experiences, from your challenges, because this is also influencing, as I said in the beginning, how we are presenting trends in the market. So happy to connect to you, and thanks for joining today.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.